In this video, we're going to be talking about the upcoming 2 hard forks that are happening on the SCPrime network. A couple months ago, SCPrime announced that they wanted to hard fork their algorithm, and most recently, they announced that they were going to hard fork and create a third, or really a secondary, token on their network. And today we're going to talk about both of those. The first one that was announced was the algo change. Now, they have pushed this off for a couple more months. It's not happening this month. But essentially what they're doing is, for whatever reason, they have it in their heads that they need to kick off the old ASICs. Why, I have no idea, but they're basically going to switch to Siacoin's algo. So if you're not aware, SCPrime is a fork of Siacoin. However, they stuck with the original Blake2B algo and not the Sia specific one. If you're not aware, Sia, back in, I think it was like 2018, they decided to create their own ASIC. And as part of that, they actually did a tiny adjustment to the algo on their network to basically kick off Bitmain's Antminer and also the Inosilicon, I think it was the S11. And essentially, they only wanted their miner to be capable of using the network. Since then, we know Goldshell's created units. There's been various units that have been built that work on the updated algo, but SCPrime had stuck to the old version, and they decided that they want to kick off the Bitmains and the Inosilicon S11s, and their justification was they've already ROI'd and multiple times over, and there won't be any harm in just letting those machines die. I don't agree with that decision. I don't see why you can't just let it be. I personally don't have one of those ASICs, but you're essentially kicking them off for no reason. SCPrime's even announced that they have plans to move to proof of stake in the future. So it seems kind of weird that they're putting this effort in switching the algo, kicking them off, just to move to POS in, say, a year or so. It seems like a waste of effort and time and money to me. So we're not going to delve too much into that one. But the other change that is the more pressing matter is the fork that is happening this month. So they've already gone through testing, and they are hard forking and creating an additional token on the network. So if you're not familiar with how SCPrime works, again, it is a fork of Sia, so it works very similar to that. But essentially you have SCP, which is the coin that if you're a storage provider or if you're a user on the network, you pay using that coin. There's also what's called an SPF token, and we'll get into that here in a few minutes. But then there's also this new token that they're trying to create called SPFB. It's essentially a secondary token that they want to use for a bunch of things, and we're going to cover that in the video. Before we talk about the SPFs directly, I'm just going to pull up Notepad, and I kind of want to document out the process that most decentralized storage networks use so that you can kind of understand my viewpoints and where I'm coming from on this. So you have a client. That client wants to buy storage, right? So they're going to essentially connect to a contractor. That contractor is going to form the smart contract. That's going to then make its way to a relayer, and then that relayer is going to interact with the providers. Right? So if you're providing storage, you're a provider. If you're consuming storage, you're a client. There's two pieces in the middle. There's the relayer, and there's the contractor. The contractor is centralized. It's pretty much this way in almost every decentralized storage platform. You're always going to have this piece because this is the piece that's responsible for forming the contract, handling the payouts, kind of handling everything behind the scenes. And this is my biggest problem with decentralized storage, is the contractor itself is centralized. And so what this means is, as a client, if I want to store data, right, I first need to establish a contract with the contractor, basically saying, all right, I want to store 10 gigabytes of data for 30 days, right? That might be the contract, and then you can set it up for auto renewal, whatever that may be. Then once you want to actually send data, the client would call the relayer, and then the relayer would distribute the chunks of data out to all those providers. So the relayer is really responsible for making sure that data goes where it needs to go, or it's read from where it needs to be read, and then maybe it combines those chunks together into the binary file, and the client's able to download it. Kind of the relayer you could almost think of similar as a proxy. So now that we've established that, let's talk about how SCP and SPF work. So a client will pay SCP, right, whenever they want to download data, upload data, or just essentially a contract value, right, for their data to be available. And then what happens is 10%, once that contract gets satisfied, meaning the contract gets completed, 10% of the SCP is taken from the relayer, 10% is taken from the provider. So we're talking about 20% of that revenue is then actually distributed to anybody that holds this SPF token. The problem with the SPF token is you can't buy it. It essentially has no value. It's not on any markets. You can't, like I said, you can't buy it, you can't sell it. People really don't give it away. The only people that hold this are the initial investors in the project. And it's basically like 200 million of these were spun up at the Genesis block. So it was essentially an ICO that went to those initial investors. And the majority of the coins are held by the project team. And essentially what's happening is it's almost working like a proof of stake, where if you hold, let's say that payout was 100 SCP for that contract, right? And we're talking 20%. So 20 SCP are then going to be divided amongst everybody that holds SPF in their wallet. Now, I'm just going to hop over to my wallet real quick. So this is my node. This is my storage node that I run from within HiveOS. And you can see I have over 1,000 SCP. That's the KS. And if you look at my SCPrime funds and my claims, I have 0. I've been providing decentralized storage for 13 months, and I've never once had the opportunity to get SPF. Which means if I have 1,000 tokens, right, 100 of my tokens, pretty much, have been distributed to other people. All right, I could have another 100 tokens here, realistically, or probably even more if I held even 1 SPF, let's say, right, because that would be getting divided amongst everybody. I had no problem buying it. However I could detain it, it'd be great. Unfortunately, it's not an option. So, in addition to the SPF token, they're basically adding another SPF token, and their plans for it are what I consider extreme. So what has happened over the past year, around this time last year, they announced a plan that they wanted to move to a licensing model, where they basically said, we want people buying our DIY machines because that's what funds development, right? Not really telling anybody about this SPF token, knowing they already hold all of these. All they have to do is submit it to an exchange, get it listed, sell it, they could have sufficient debt fund. But instead, what they did is they basically said, if you are running your miner at home, meaning you didn't buy one of their EXA miners, right? So if we pull up one of their EXA miners, here we can see 64 terabytes. Their regular price is $3,500, right? I think they're still running their holiday sale. But essentially, $3,500 is what you would have to pay in order to get a device onto the network. And if you looked, I only made 1,000 SCP over the past 13 months using my own device, which in the current market is like $130. It's nothing. Like, you would have never got anywhere close to this. And so you either had to buy this device to continue to provide storage on the network, or you had to buy a license. And so what they had was they offered a basic license and they offered a full license. And when this happened, like I said, this was probably around February of 2022, they said, hey, we want to have a way for our customers to say, I need data that I know is on a good system. I want to make sure it's in the US. And they kind of wanted to use this licensing model for that. They basically said, if you hold a basic license, you'll be able to get data, and it's even listed on their product page. You'll be able to limit the data stored to only the data they're selling to clients. Meaning, if they go out and they sell data to a federal government firm, federal government says that data has to exist within the United States, I can opt in to store their data on my system. If I don't have a license, I can't opt in. They're now making a change with this recent fork that they're trying to do. Well, they've already coded it. They're basically just waiting for the block for it to be activated. But what they're saying is, oh no, that's not the case anymore. You now have to have a full license, which I paid $100 for the basic license. The full license is $450. And they're basically, with this one, they're giving you 2,500 of the SPFB token. And what they're saying is you have to hold that token if you want to receive all the data on the network. Without that token, you're not going to receive all the data. You're only going to receive certain types of data, right? And they haven't come out and they haven't said what that data is. In addition, they basically said that once they move the proof of stake, you have to hold this SPF token if you want to be part of governance or voting. The other point to this is this hard fork, there was no vote on. I'm in their Discord, I get their notifications, I'm on every single storage provider call. There was no chance to actually vote on this fork. Right? They basically, their project team came out and said, we're creating this is what we're using the tokens for, and that's it. Almost seems like they're essentially, if we come back over to the EXA miner, oh, not that one, that's their warranty. And we scroll down here, this used to be that if you bought a device, they would give you a rebate in SCP. They're basically saying, no, we're not going to give you SCP anymore. We want to give you this new token. And what that tells me is either they ran out of SCP, which I highly doubt. More likely, and they've said this on calls, is the SCP value is extremely low right now, and essentially they don't want to give it out. They want to hold it until the price goes up, and then they're likely going to sell it. This is a big, big issue in my eyes, right? So in addition to buying the license, buying their branded miners, right, they're still wanting to hold all of the coins that they have that at the beginning of the project they said they were going to use for rebates, they were going to use for miner payouts, or rather storage payouts, and those types of things. I have a big problem with the direction that they've been heading, just because they've moved to the licensing model. They've moved to essentially saying, no, we don't want to reward you in the SCP anymore for the rebate. Now, you will still be getting SCP on providing storage, but not on the rebate. The rebate's obviously the substantial one. The biggest issue I have with this is they're saying we're not going to list it at this time. But you need it if you want to fully participate in the network, which tells me they're basically wanting you to buy their devices or buy their high-end license just to get that token to be able to run on their network. So personally, what I'm doing is I'm holding basic license. I basically I only have 4 terabytes of storage on the network. That's all I'm going to leave on the network. Everything else is going to move to storage, possibly Flux, Fractus nodes. We'll see how that turns out. But essentially, I'm not going to shut off my SCPrime node. I'm going to continue to run it. However, I'm not going to upgrade the license. I'm definitely not buying one of their miners. Even if I didn't have my own DIY, I would not buy their miners just because I'm not on board with the direction the project has been heading. I get it, there's development costs, but they keep changing things every couple months because they're saying that, or some of it they're outright saying, some of it they're not outright saying, but they're giving the perception that, hey, we're basically giving you more coins than we want to give you because the price is down. And until that price goes back up, we're just going to spin up a new token, and we're going to give you that instead, which has no monetary value. And so how do you give a rebate for something that has no monetary value, right? Their big buying point with these XA miners was that they were giving, 40% back, I think is what it was. I don't know if it tells you the exact amount. I forget what the exact amount was. It was something like 60% of the purchase price was coming back in the, it doesn't say anymore, but it was something like 60% of the purchase price you were getting back in the SCP token, which actually had a monetary value, but under the current market, that you were getting it back pegged to the purchase price, meaning you were getting a whole lot of coins back, and they just don't want to distribute those. They want to hold them. And again, I get it, you have development costs, but this wasn't the way to go about it, right? You're basically telling people, hey, if you want to fully participate in the network, you gotta buy your device, you gotta buy a license, or you have to participate in like a community contest in order to get that token. And then hold the token, never sell it, right? You're basically holding it just to have governance within the network. In addition to this, if you look at the sheer amount that's here, you're basically saying our XA miners are gonna have the most votes in the network, right? Just because of the sheer amount of SPFs they're given, and don't have the opportunity to buy, don't have the opportunity to sell. This is a big issue. Like, just jumping into this without any vote and essentially saying, hey, we have plans for this token. We're not going to tell you what all those plans are yet, but what we are going to do right now is if you buy this, we're going to give you a bunch of these tokens, and yeah, you're probably going to want these in the future if you want to continue to receive data, right? If you don't move to this, we still have no idea if they're going to modify this basic license to basically say you don't get data unless you have that SPF token, right? Because right now, if you hold this license, you run a DIY unit, you have no way of getting that SPF token unless somebody gifts it to you. It's literally the only way to get it today. It's a big, big problem. right? I don't understand why they had to take this approach, right? If you need a dev fund, come up with some other way to come up with the dev fund other than, kind of reneging on what you have been promising for the past year and a half, right? With the rebates, with everything kind of talking about the coin. They've just now brought up the token. Nobody even really knew these tokens existed until a few months ago when they really started getting brought up. And it's very disappointing on, the direction the project's headed. I've always had concerns with this project in that parts of it are centralized, which there's no way around. We have the same thing with storage, right? Like this piece in the middle here is centralized. When you talk about decentralized storage, there's no way around that. Flux, this piece is going to be centralized, guys. Like, there's no way around that because something has to accept that contract and distribute it out, right? Something has to handle auto renewals. That's not happening, on specific nodes or anything. That is happening centralized. There's really no way around this right now. This has been a big bottleneck for decentralized storage. Each side of this is decentralized, but that middle is not. And unfortunately, with SCPrime, they are kind of taking full advantage of that, and they're implementing whatever they want to implement, and I do not agree with it. So, as it stands, again, going to continue to keep my node on until I'm not earning anything anymore. And even that, I mean, my earnings have gone down substantially. If we refresh here, it's this. So we're a week into the month, and I've only earned 5 SCP. So, and last month I only earned 12, right? If we head over to CoinMarketCap, we pull up SCP, right, current price is 13 cents. This thing peaked at what, $3 almost? Yeah, $2.98 is what the coin peaked at last year. And so, if we let's just take 13 cents as an example. Last month, for providing storage, I only got $1.60. Right? Again, I paid $100 for that license just to stay on the network. And if we look at this month, let's just assume that I'm going to maintain around 5 SCP a week. So let's say 20 SCP. Right, $2.60 is all that I'm getting for the month for maintaining storage on the network. It's costing me more in hardware to actually run this. Right, and even if that price went up to $3, it's still only $60 a month. It's still not that substantial at the height of the market, right? It's, for what they're asking you to buy into, it's just very concerning when I can jump on the storage network, provide as much storage as I want, it'll be consumed. I get steady payouts once a month. I actually got my storage payout today. I saw it hit my ledger, and it just seems like a far superior network at this point. The only thing SCP really had going for it was it actually did have a direct S3 module built in that made it seamless to transition. But with all these other issues, it's just not enough. We could easily take that module and probably transfer that over into storage, into Flux, into a different network. And I don't know, I have all kinds of concerns with SCPrime, but just wanted to provide you my thoughts in the video. Definitely not financial advice or anything, just kind of giving you a heads up on what I plan on doing. If you run a SCPrime node, especially if it's DIY, drop me a comment below. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know what your plans are. I'd love to hear them down in the comments below.